Thank you to all of our panelists for these excellent insights. So this discussion, which we just witnessed, could have happened anywhere in the world. It could have happened in Singapore, it could have happened in New York, it could have happened in London, it could have happened anywhere. So why Zurich, Switzerland? Why is the Swiss Crypto Valley happening here in Switzerland? This is the topic of the next presentation, and it is an incredible pleasure to welcome Olga Feldmeier on stage, who will speak about Swiss finance in transition from offshore private banking to crypto finance.
Thanks. Hello, guys. So I will try to do it short. It's just 70 minutes, so kidding. Okay, so I would like to talk to you why I believe that Switzerland is predestined to become a new crypto finance hub. And I would like to help you maybe to put a little bit things into perspective. I would like to tell you two stories. Two stories that are very different, but two stories which are about the same. One story is a very long story. It goes over 200 years, and it's about a country. And the other story is very recent, very short, and it's about technology. So let's have a look at the first story. So that was the history of Swiss private banking, 200-year-old history in 60 seconds. It was a little bit exercise, right? Understand? But the point here is, that this country has always had this independent, neutral status, right? Which helped it to cherish the tradition of privacy and bank secrecy. And this represents one of the core competitive advantages of this country, of the banking center. And this advantage got a crack as in 2009, UBS had to give out information, client information to US. And from there, the next steps evolved with European Union, and so on. So basically, next year is a very historical year, because next year it will be the first year where the automatic information exchange agreement kicks in, where Swiss banks just need to give information about all the clients in automatic way. And that's quite a big deal, because you see that was very important, that constituted the basis of this privacy and security. So as this story kind of getting its cracks and the question of redefinition emerges, there is a new story coming up. Let's have a look at this story. So two different stories, right? But they are basically about the same. They are about human rights. They are about protection and safety of wealth and savings. The things that are so, normal and natural to us, but which is a quite luxury for almost all of people living outside of our rich world. And it's actually a very interesting historical coincidence that, the moment the global custody of the world, Switzerland, was put in question, 2008, exactly that moment, a new global custody, Bitcoin, was on the rise. Now, and this is exactly, two things how people can go about saving their wealth and, storing their money somewhere outside of their local currencies, their countries, right? Like if you are out there in China, in Russia, in any kind of the place where you have a reason to worry, because, you live in a country controlled by a government that, maybe abuse monetary policy and put it as a means for wealth redistribution, printing money, or maybe, you're not very protected by the book of law. There is misappropriation of companies happening. There are retirement reforms, all kind of sorts of money, ways to lose your wealth. Then you kind of really would like to put money somewhere as far as possible from your country. And today you have two opportunities. One is for rich and one is for poor. So if you're rich, and by rich I mean, in terms of Swiss private banking definition, if you have 5 million liquid assets or more, then, well, you can book your flight here to Switzerland, you will meet a very nice Swiss banker, and he will be very helpful with a lot of things. And you can be pretty much sure that what you have today will be the same as what you have tomorrow, and maybe even a little bit more. But if you're not rich, like outside of the 5 million scope, then basically out there you don't have a lot of opportunities. Until recently, basically not many. But today you have Bitcoin. Basically in any country of the world you can buy Bitcoin and you can transfer, you can do with it whatever you want. It's yours. Nobody can take it away. And I'm so excited. I mean, it's been like a 10 years journey of Bitcoin, but I'm so excited about it until now. And I tell you why. Because as I was a teenager and, we lived through collapse of Soviet Union, in Ukraine, we suffered probably through the worst hyperinflation of modern history. We had like 10,000% inflation per year, between 2 to 10,000 over 5 years. So we basically lost everything, right? It was pretty bad. My grandmother, a famous researcher, professor at the university, she would end up on the street if I wouldn't be lucky enough to get a scholarship from German government and be able to send her 50 Deutsche Mark per month. And back then we didn't have Bitcoin. We couldn't do anything, right? We couldn't even buy, dollar. So that's the reality of countries out there that we don't see. But I think, with emergence of cryptocurrency, we receive a great opportunity to change that, to give access to safe and secure, haven assets abroad to everybody. It doesn't have to be only rich and powerful. It doesn't have to be only 5 million plus. Cryptocurrency enables us to move funds easily. And this is a great also business opportunity. And of course, Bitcoin as a blockchain as a technology gives us an opportunity to build a very efficient market infrastructure, completely next generation trading platform and so on, where transaction and settlements fall into one creating completely new structures and liquidity opportunities. And this is actually what we at Smart VALOR envisaged as an opportunity. We're building a decentralized marketplace for tokenized alternative investments. Swiss, safe and legal as a Swiss bank, but accessible and for all of us as Bitcoin. This is our vision. And I think there is no better time to do it and no better place to do it than here and now. Because today we're standing at unique intersection, perfect crossing of new technology and regulatory opening. New technology, blockchain technology, technology for money in first place, and regulatory openings through which we are living here in Switzerland. And this regulatory opening, maybe it's not so transparent for you now, but just to touch base on what's going on. To make regulatory change happen, you need two things. The regulator needs to be able to do the change, and it needs to be political will behind it. And I would like to say that here in Switzerland we have both. We have the ability and we have the will. So the ability is, first of all, knowledge of the regulator. So the regulator needs to understand the technology. And this is actually not such a given thing. If you look at back at the history, in a lot of cases, regulation was always lacking the technology. And it's an obvious thing, you know, of course, as new technology emerges, there are not a lot of people that have a deep understanding and comprehension about implication for the business model for banking, right? So for regulators, it's very difficult to catch up with all the developments. And in history, we had the most funniest examples about different regulatory cases. As they invented the car, this is maybe comparable, back in the late end of the 19th century in UK, there was a Red Flag Act. I don't know if you heard about this one. The Red Flag Act actually said that, you know, the car needs to move only 4 kilometers per hour in the city, and there needs to be men going ahead of this with a red flag, warning everybody of the danger, so that nobody gets killed, right? And of course, as you can imagine, you know, there were just so many people to walk with a red flag, so that was quite a hurdle. It's not that bad in our case, right? And the great advantage what we have here in Switzerland is that our regulator is very knowledgeable about Bitcoin and blockchain. They started to look into this topic back in 2014, and by now, I would say they developed quite an expertise in this field. So coming back to ability, the ability of the regulator to make a change, it's understanding of the technology, number one. It's, you know, flexibility and independence. And this is also what we have here, right? Because Switzerland is a small country, it's not part of European Union, you know. Here authorities can decide what needs to be done and then just do it, right? More or less. And the third factor is, you know, the way regulation is structured. And here in Switzerland, we have regulations that is prudential and principle-based. That means, you know, that they're not trying to make the rules about everything in small detail, but to provide guidance on the principle-based line. Yeah, so this is, you know, this is why I think the ability is here, and the will, the political will, is also here. And this is easy to understand, even if you're not from Switzerland, you don't know all our banking stories. This is easy to understand, you know, as the Swiss banking secrecy goes away, you know, this question for competitive advantage this is kind of, like, if this goes away, what should be our basis? Like, how do we gonna compete on the global, as a global banking or finance center? And the obvious question to this one is, of course, fintech, right? Fintech, blockchain. This is how we as a Switzerland can, still hold a very good position in global banking. But this is not just a theory, it is actually what's going on. We have several very good examples about, how regulator was opening to crypto space, and I was very lucky to be able to influence one of them. Last year, it was case of, Bitcoin custodian that came here to Switzerland to with a goal to establish headquarters here and to be regulated here. Bitcoin custody, Bitcoin wallet, this kind of stuff, right? And initially we had very difficult conversation with FINMA, like this crypto, and you hold the private keys. So if you hold the private keys, then you're kind of in control of the funds. If you're in control of the funds, you're kind of a bank. So then, the discussion was like, you guys should apply for a bank license. And you can understand, for any startup banking license where you have 10 million capital requirements and all the structural requirements, it's mission impossible, right? So it was like, well, this is it. And then I understood that we just need to call this into attention on a broader social and political level, right? So I started to talk to politicians, political organizations, associations, even banks. And there was so much support from all the different angles, right? Everybody said like, oh, wow, look, this Silicon Valley company is coming here to Switzerland and they need, to get this licensing stuff done. So why don't us support that, right? And make this happen. And there was so much momentum that finally, end of the last year, FINMA, Swiss financial regulator, pulled back and said, okay, guys, we're going to do an exception. You go. Right? You're allowed to operate in Switzerland without banking license, simply as a financial intermediary. And that was a big deal. That was a big achievement. And I think a lot of cases are happening now. We will see a lot of new cases like this coming. Banking Light, fintech license is coming up next year. That's going to be also quite a big deal and very beneficial to companies like ours, because we will be able to operate almost like a bank without need to put so much capital on the side. But I think, looking back, we will always look to this case, Xapo case, right? And see it as a turning point in regulatory policy. So with that, I would like to tell you that yes, there is a hope, and I truly believe that Switzerland will be, in terms of regulation, one of the most forward-thinking countries going forward for crypto space, for blockchain. But it's not just enough for us to sit down there, relax, and hope that, they will figure out. We need to shape it. We need to be loud. We need to talk. We need to discuss. We need to show the regulator the way we are going, the way it should be. And now here I'm talking about ICO. Being an ICO company, it's almost like being a public company, like even more public company, right? Without having the rules of those. But all those people, they're giving you money, right? And you're kind of not obliged to do all the, requirements that you would do as a regulated public company. But the more I think we need to do it on our free will. And there are so many things that we can do better in terms of governance, in terms of, how ICO are done and what is the governance and structures that are, following that. And I think we would need to start a conversation also here in Switzerland. We are planning to start a series of roundtables around best practices for ICO here in Switzerland. And I would like to welcome everybody who would like to dedicate to this topic. Let us lead the way and show what is the best way ICO companies should be, regulated or even like self-regulated, right? And this is about token structure, right? It's about cap when you raise money. It's about KYC, that you take care that you don't get dirty money in. It's about self-imposed commitment to audited financial statements, right? That you just do it, right? You show how much equity you hold, tokens hold for your team, you show how you vested, complete transparency. There are just so many things that we can do better. And this is my call to all of you. Let's do it together. Thank you very much.